right, seeing as we have a quorum, I'd like to call to order this regular session of the Bloomington Common Council for Wednesday, December 4th, 2024. Will the deputy clerk please call the roll?
Member Flaherty.
Here.
Zulik. Here. Rollo.
Here.
Ruff.
Here.
Piedmont Smith.
Here.
Stossberg.
Here.
Asare.
Here.
Rosenbarger.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, I'd like to start with our land and labor acknowledgement. We recognize that the city of Bloomington sits on native land. The city, as well as city administrative buildings, are on the traditional homelands of the Miami, Delaware, Potawatomi, and Shawnee people, and we acknowledge they are past, present, and future caretakers of this land. We also acknowledge that much of the economic progress and development in Indiana and Bloomington resulted from the unpaid labor and forced servitude of people of color, specifically enslaved African labor. We acknowledge that this land remains home to and a site of gathering and healing for many indigenous and other people of color, and we commit to the work necessary to create and promote a more equitable and just Bloomington. We move forward knowing and acknowledging our rich, complicated, and sometimes painful past so that we can learn from it and create a true land of opportunity. So tonight on the agenda, we have approval of 2 sets of minutes. Then we will move to reports, first reports from council members. Then we will have a report from the Bloomington Arts Commission. Then any council committee reports, if there are any. Then we will have reports from the public, and that is the first period when members of the public can make a comment on items that are not on the agenda. Then we will move to appointments to boards and commissions. Then we move to legislation for first reading. We have Ordinance 2024-26 to fix the salaries of all elected city officials for the city of Bloomington for the year 2025. That's for first reading only tonight. Then we have Appropriation Ordinance 2024-09 to specially appropriate from the General Fund, Economic Development Lit Fund, Parks and Recreation General Fund, Public Safety Lit Fund, ARPA Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, and Alternative Transportation Fund, expenditures not otherwise appropriated. That's appropriating various transfer of funds in the general fund, the Economic Development Lit Fund, that's Local Income Tax Fund, the Parks and Rec General Fund, the Public Safety Lit Fund, the ARPA Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, and the Alternative Transportation Fund. Sorry if that sounds redundant. Then the next item for first reading is Ordinance 2024-25, an ordinance to amend Ordinance 23-25, which fixed the salaries of appointed officers, non-union, and AFS-CME employees for all departments of the city of Bloomington, Indiana for 2024. And the final item for first reading is Ordinance 2024-27 to amend Title II of the Bloomington Municipal Code entitled Administration and Personnel regarding the establishment of the Advisory Transportation Commission. We will then move on to legislation for second readings and resolutions. Under that heading, we have Resolution 2024-26 to approve the interlocal agreement between Monroe County, the town of Ellettsville, and the city of Bloomington for animal shelter operation for the year 2025. Then we have Resolution 2024-27, approval of interlocal cooperation agreement between the city of Bloomington and Monroe County for Building Code Authority. And the third item in this category is Resolution 2024-20 to amend the city of Bloomington's transportation plan in order to incorporate the Safe Streets and Roads for All Safety Action Plan. Then we will have an additional period of public comment for items not on the agenda. We will discuss the council's schedule for 2025 and with a possible vote to adopt that, and then we will adjourn.
I would like to move. There was a committee of the whole that was partially noticed on Monday, and it was not noticed in full accordance with the open door law in Indiana. So I would like to move to cancel that committee of the whole meeting that was partially noticed that was supposed to be held after this meeting.
There's a motion to cancel the Committee of the Whole meeting that was scheduled after this meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Let's take a roll call vote on the motion, please. Or is there any discussion, questions? Okay.
Councilmember Flaherty?
Yes.
Zulik?
Yes.
Rallo?
Yes.
Ruff?
Yes.
Piedmont Smith?
Yes.
Stossberg?
Yes.
Asare?
Yes.
And Rosenbarger.
Yes.
Thank you.
That motion passes, so the Committee of the Whole meeting for today has been canceled. We have scheduled a special session of the council for next Tuesday, December 10th at 7:30 p.m. in council chambers in order to discuss Ordinance 2024-26, which fixes the salaries of elected city officials for the city for 2025. That will be a discussion only. We will also have a second reading of that legislation on December 11th at our regular session, and that we will not vote anytime earlier than that December 11th meeting. So rest assured, if you cannot make it on Tuesday, the 10th, there will be further discussion on Wednesday, the 11th.
I would like to move to approve the minutes listed from August 7th, 2024 and November 13th, 2024.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that those two sets of minutes be approved. Is there any comment or correction? Seeing none, will the Chief Deputy Clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Zulik?
Yes.
Rallo?
Yes.
Ruff?
Yes.
Piedmont Smith?
Yes.
Stossberg?
Yes.
Asare?
Yes.
Rosenbarger?
Yes.
And Flaherty.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will move on to reports from council members, and I will start on my left. Councilmember Asare, do you have a report this evening?
Absolutely. Colleagues, hello. 2 weeks ago, had the pleasure in my role as a member of the Trades District Board to attend the opening of The Forge, which is a remarkable addition to Bloomington's growing ecosystem of innovation. For those unfamiliar, The Forge is a new tech incubator in the Trades District designed to support entrepreneurs, startups, and the kind of bold ideas that can shape our city's future into a space where collaboration, creativity, and investment can converge. And I think it's an inspiring example of what's possible and what has been achieved here in a very short amount of time. I want to take a moment before finishing my report to commend the leadership that made this vision a reality. John Fernandez, the mayor, leaders at the university, and so many others who have invested their time, energy, and expertise in bringing the Forge to life. I think it's a testament of what can be accomplished when the city and all stakeholders, particularly the private sector and academics, join forces. But as I stood there at the opening, I couldn't help but reflect on the work ahead. The Forge is, as we said at the opening, a spark, but economic vitality requires constant attention and action. It's not just about innovation hubs that we build, but it's about ensuring our entire community benefits from the opportunities they create. To be clear, we face significant challenges. And many of you have probably recently heard about MCSC, for example, in response to certain demographics, thinking that they may have to close schools. For example, our labor force is shrinking in some sectors while aging too quickly in others, and too many of our families are caught in the ALISH threshold, earning above the federal poverty level, but still struggling to afford basic necessities. And despite wage growth in recent years, we continue to lag behind national and state averages. This year, when I introduced the resolution to start us on the process in collaboration with the mayor's office and controller to take a transformative step in how we approach budgeting, we began slowly this process of shifting from a program-based budget to an outcome-based budget. And again, for those unfamiliar, an outcome-based budget moves beyond simply funding programs to tying every dollar we spend to explicit, measurable outcomes that reflect our priorities. While the steps we've taken so far are small, they are significant in laying the groundwork for this new approach. And so as I look to the future, sort of reflecting on this last couple of weeks, I believe it's critical that we prioritize outcomes focused on economic vitality and strength. Economic vitality is not an abstract idea. It's about creating a community where people want to live, work, and raise their families. It's about making sure that the innovation celebrated at the Forge, just as an example, isn't just an isolated achievement, but part of a broader strategy to lift everyone up. And so in the weeks and months ahead, I urge us all to take economic realities of our community seriously and to focus on improving them. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go next to Councilmember Rosenbarger. Do you have a report tonight?
No report, thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Stossberg?
I just want to shortly say I usually have constituent meetings on the third Saturday of the month, and the third Saturday of the month this time is, I feel like it's blurring a little bit too closely into holidays, so I am going to cancel that meeting that was on the 21st of December in person, and I haven't quite figured out my reschedule yet, but I'm going to reschedule my constituent meeting for December to be a Zoom meeting, probably somewhere between December 13th and December 16th sometime, and I have to figure out a time. So if you're somebody who tends to like to come to these, just kind of keep an eye out for that change, and that there will be virtual meeting information posted soon. Thanks.
Thank you. And on my right, Councilmember Zulik, do you have a report?
Yes, hello. So I guess I'll just address kind of the elephant in the room and talk a little bit about our elected official salary ordinance. I was the chair.
Point of information, we can't, because it's on first reading tonight, we can't talk about that ordinance tonight by state law.
Councilmember Zulik, you could give a brief committee report under committee reports.
I'll give a committee report then. So I guess I just want to explain kind of our thinking and talk a little bit about the process and
I'm so sorry. I meant in the section of the agenda where we have committee reports.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thank you. Councilmember Rollo, do you have a report? I have no report. Councilmember Ruff, do you have a report?
No report, thank you.
All right, and I just wanted to report on a couple of things. Yesterday, I attended an online meeting about Accessible USA, I think that's how it's pronounced, which is a new entity in the United States, although it's been active for a long time in the UK, that creates user guides for people with disabilities for all kinds of public spaces, restaurants, theaters, campuses, schools, et cetera, so that when they are going to decide where to go or if they're going to a meeting or something, they can look up ahead of time and see exactly what the entrance looks like, what the elevator situation is, even if somebody is neurodivergent, whether the carpet has a distracting pattern on it, anything like that, and whether there are accommodations for the hearing impaired. All those things are put in user guides that are created by Accessible. And they actually go to the venue, or they have a partner at the venue that walks through and films what they see, so that they can then create these guides, and with lots of photos, so people can feel very comfortable when they go to a venue. And I think that's a wonderful tool, and I would love to see Bloomington be the first city in the United States to spearhead this. Now, why Bloomington? Well, our own Leslie Davis, who's the chair of the Council on Community Accessibility, is the vice president for U.S. operations of Accessible. And so, of course, she would love to see her own town be at the forefront of this movement. So I'm hoping that we can build some partnerships with Indiana University, with MCCSC, with the Chamber, and other businesses to find some grant money to implement this. It usually costs about $500 per venue. So it is not cheap, but it, I think, pays dividends in the long run, just to make our residents and our visitors feel more welcome and including them in all of our activities. So I want to mention that, and then I also had a great meeting with the interim superintendent of Monroe County Community Schools, Dr. Mark A. Winston, along with Councilmember Stossberg yesterday, and that was a great conversation to build some connections. They will be figuring out ways to implement a new state requirement that will require internships for each high school student. Right now, it's just an optional thing, so they're going to need a lot more placements, and hopefully the city can help with that. And then earlier today, I did have a tour of Ivy Tech Community College, specifically their new semiconductor facility on Parkway. No, I can't remember now. Anyway, on the west side. And it's a marvelous opportunity for training that is really new throughout the country because of the CHIPS Act and the investments that are coming from the federal level to create semiconductors and computer chips, microchips, here in the United States. So a lot of good outreach in the last few days. We will now move on to a report from the Bloomington Arts Commission. And I think we have Director Holly Warren and the chair of the commission, so welcome.
Yes. Hi everyone. My name is Holly Warren. I'm the Assistant Director for the Arts in the Department of Economic and Sustainable Development. I'll let Gerard introduce himself.
I'm Gerard Punikook, the chair of the Bloomington Arts Commission, and I'll quickly state that this presentation reflects the position of arts commissioners as volunteers and members of the Bloomington community. It does not necessarily reflect the position of the Department of Economic and Sustainable Development or the administration of the city of Bloomington.
Thanks. So I'm the Assistant Director for the Arts, and as part of that role, I am the staff liaison for the Bloomington Arts Commission. So I just want to give you a brief overview of who the commissioners are. So this is a group of 11 commissioners. 6 are selected by the Office of the Mayor, 5 are selected by council. These are arts experts in our community. They are professional painters, they are curators, they are light designers, they are musicians. They are incredibly dynamic, and they help me check my blind spots to help me work with them to make the best decisions about how we're allocating funds to support the Bloomington Arts Commission's mission. Our mission is really threefold. So it's first and foremost to promote the arts and artists here in Bloomington. And we also want to make sure that we're promoting creativity and artistic excellence in our community. And then I also want, the commissioners really want to make sure that they are being an excellent liaison between the public arts organizations, artists, and me as a representative of our city government. And so 2 of the main ways they function in doing this work is through 2 big programs. One is our grant program, and one is through our public art program. And I'm going to turn it over to Gerard to let him talk a little bit about our grant program.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So the commission exists to support Holly and the city in the work they do because the arts are important. They play a fundamental role in creating and growing Bloomington's community, and resident surveys tell us that access to arts and cultural activities are up at the top of the list of what makes Bloomington a special place to live. So the arts are also a critical part of Bloomington's economy. Beyond retaining talent, the arts routinely provide a high return on investment when publicly funded. The NEA figures a $9 return for every $1 spent. And in Bloomington specifically, the arts bring money into the city, keeps money in the city, and provide 3 times as many arts-related jobs as similar-sized cities. So all that is to say, public support for the arts in Bloomington is not just good, but crucial. So to talk a little bit about our grant program, as Holly mentioned, one of the ways the BAC supports the arts is through our grants. So the annual cycle includes 3 grant types: project, operations, and artistic advancement. The past 3 years have been really strong. The number of applications we received has gone up on average in all 3 grant types, likely due to better outreach by the city and BAC, and the quality of applications has also increased over this time. So, where does this money go? Our project grants support specific arts-based projects in Bloomington. Recipients are individuals, collectives, nonprofits, and partnerships of all mediums, age ranges, backgrounds, and audiences. And in 2024, the BAC has provided just shy of $52,000 in funds to 35 outstanding projects. Our operations grants specifically fund operations expenses for 501c3 nonprofit groups that work in the arts. And this year, we provided just shy of $39,000 in funds to 17 unique arts nonprofits. And our Artistic Advancement Grant, formerly the Emerging Artist Grant, supports artists who are looking to level up their practice through equipment purchases, professional development, and other means. Several past recipients have gone on to win regional and national awards for their photography, painting, and mixed media. And this year, we just recently awarded $1,000 grants to 44 local artists of all different backgrounds and ages, and all of whom are going places. So if there's a story to be told through our grant program, it's that there are a lot of artists in Bloomington who want to do public-facing work and succeed when given support. Their work is engaging audiences, adding to the local economy, and bringing positive recognition to the city. We're very grateful for next year's increase in funding and for the recent EdLit infusion, which has allowed us to fund grants at a higher level. And based on the way things are trending, the quality of work and demand for funds are only going to increase. So 2 other things real quick before I turn it back over to Holly. This year, we also launched a series of free professional development workshops to help artists advance their careers. The workshops featured panels of local experts and were hosted at the public library. They covered topics of writing grants, responding to artist calls, and seeking other means of financial support. We hope to continue to offer these types of workshops in the coming years. We also host, in collaboration with Downtown Bloomington, Inc., quarterly artist parties. So these parties are free and open to artists, arts venue owners, and friends of the arts, and provide a space for these folks to converse, share plans and ideas, and build community. They are well attended by community and student artists alike, and we hope to continue hosting these next year beyond as well. Shout out to Chaz for doing most of the work for that.
Thanks, and I just want to second the shout out to Chaz. She's been pivotal to helping us get these workshops and these networking events off the ground. We're grateful to have her working with us. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about public art. That's the other main area where the Bloomington Arts Commission does its work. So I'm going to start by just grounding us with what we define as public art here in Bloomington. So the Bloomington Arts Commission defines public art as a collective community expression through any form of media that is created for the general public. And so this kind of art can take many, many forms. It can be a mural, it can be a 3D piece, it can be a sonic experience, it can be a light show. There are so many different things that it can be. And it needs to be a piece that is created in tandem with many folks in our community. It needs to be stakeholders, again, arts experts, artists themselves, and many, many others. We need the input from everyone in our community to make sure we're doing art that really reflects who we are as a city. We also want to make sure that works of public art are visually, audibly, and physically accessible. So those are really our principles when we think about what is public art. So we have a few different types of public art programs in the city. Our principal one is called the 1% for the Arts program. So this is a great program that we have. So there's an ordinance in Bloomington that says for every public construction project that the city takes on, 1% of our public construction funds have to go towards some kind of arts project. So that's why you see some of these great large-scale public art projects in the community, including Urban Fabric by Adam Buente on our 4th Street Garage. That's actually one of the largest pieces of public art in the state of Indiana, so go us. You can also see the Hoosier Line North Star installation down on Switchyard Park, and you can see Aurora Almanac just north of us here in the Trades District Garage. We're really proud of these projects, and we're really excited to announce we're going to be doing 2 new ones in spring and summer of 2025. So most recently, we awarded local artist John Rasick with the public art installation Undulate that is going to take up the entire western half of Hopewell Commons. So this is a piece that literally moves through the western side of Hopewell Commons, and it invites people to both actively and passively experience it. You can sit and look at it, or you can literally sit on this piece. So we're really excited about this as a way to bring folks into this new developing area, and as you can see, it lights up at night. Another project we're really excited to install in spring of 2025 is OT 987. This is a long time coming. This was actually commissioned back in 2019, and it's finally happening. This is our Trades District 1% for the Arts project. So look for some great community engagement events around that, opportunities to meet and engage with the artist in April of 2025. We're also going to be kicking off 2 new 1% for the Arts projects in 2025. We're going to be working with our colleagues in the fire department to do a public art installation at Fire Station 3, and we're going to be working with the Capital Improvement Board, who's overseeing the convention center expansion, to do a 1% for the Arts project there. This is really exciting for us because the budget for this is over $500,000. This is the largest public art project that that dollar amount is the largest. So we're really excited to get in on that. And again, work with the entire community to make sure we're doing something there that everybody can embrace and feel reflects them as Bloomingtonians. And so we don't just do 1% for the Arts, we do other things as well. We had an exciting collaboration with Duke earlier this year. So we worked with 3 local artists to do a gigantic mural on one of the walls on the substation that's at Rogers and 11th Street. As part of this project, we had a community paint day where over 50 residents from Bloomington came and helped us paint. They all wanted to come back the next day. It was awesome. And then we're going to do a real piece of public art in our Miller Showers Gateway where that new Bloomington sign is going. In early 2025, we're going to kick off this project by inviting the public to give us feedback so we understand what they really want to go there. So again, we're making sure that whatever is there, whatever is reflecting Bloomington as people come in through the north entrance, people embrace it and they say, yes, this is us, this is Bloomington. This is one more smaller project we've done this year, but I'm going to use this as an opportunity to say, so when I came into this role, there was an old public art spreadsheet that really hadn't been updated since 2016 that had all pieces of public art listed on it. And right now we're finally able to pick that project up to turn this public art spreadsheet into a publicly accessible public art database that will document every piece of public art in the community. We're working with our IT department to create an interactive map so folks can go in, learn about the art, and even do self-guided tours. And starting in spring of 25, we're actually going to do in-person guided tours of public art in the community. So we're really excited about that. We're going to invite you to the artist party, we were going to invite you to the artist party, but I actually think you might be here. Sorry, y'all, but come to the after party because this goes on a lot later than we say it does publicly. So, yeah. Again, we just want to express all of our gratitude to you for all the support you've given to the arts. It's been great, I think, for us to come into the community and be able to be active in supporting our artists at the level we've been able to. This is a crucial embedded part of our culture that we want to continue to support, and we're looking forward to, with your support in funding, growing, and honing our projects next year. And we're happy to take any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you both very much for your presentation. Are there questions from council members? Councilmember Ruff. If we could get the 2 remote council members on the screen again, thank you. Go ahead, Councilmember Ruff.
So early in the presentation, you mentioned that quality of grant applications has increased, I think was quote. And this may seem trivial, but I don't think it is. It has very different implications. To understand what you meant by that, do you mean the quality of the applications themselves? Like when we get applications and we're serving on the Jack Hopkins Committee, we have differing levels of quality of those applications. Or do you mean the quality of the projects that the application is for, as judged by you all, is better, is increasing?
I would actually say both. And this is for, I think one is, we've had a number of successful cycles and folks have seen the kinds of work that we're looking to fund, and I think there's a better understanding post-COVID of, the types of projects we're looking for, and we're getting more detailed, I think more interesting and ambitious projects. And I think also the revisions that we've done in the way that we communicate what we're looking for and what we're funding has, that clarity has been met with, I think, a better understanding of what the commission's going to fund, and I think the projects are better because of that.
So just, if I just follow up for a clarification, can I do that? So the process, you say, is getting better, the whole process?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Other questions about the Arts Commission report? Yes, Councilmember Rallo.
Yes, I haven't looked at your report yet, but I just wondered if you could comment on, so you were displaying visual art, murals and sculptures and things of that sort, but does the funding also allocate to performance art of
Yes,
music
absolutely.
and dance and so
Yes.
forth?
Yes.
Yeah. In relatively balanced way, or what?
Yes, we do our best when we're looking at all applications to make sure that we are funding as equitably as possible visual artists, musicians, performers, and when we think about the groups that we're advocating for in the community, we try to be equitable across media there as well.
Great, thank you.
Other questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much. We're
Thanks,
excited to
y'all.
see your projects of next year.
Okay, appreciate it, thank you.
All right, now we'll move to council committee reports. I think we do have a committee report. Councilmember Zulik?
Yes. So I guess I will talk a little bit about the process, and let me back up. So I was the chair of the Elected Officials Salary Committee. And I would actually like to just address all of the public backlash first. I want to start off by saying I completely understand why people are upset. It is a pretty significant increase. And I just want everyone to know that it was not our intention to come off as, closed-minded or people who aren't paying attention. For me, it's really hard to do this with a full-time job. So my thinking was that we could raise council salaries enough so that they could be paired eloquently with another part-time job and still be financially sustainable for one person to live with. To the people who have expressed their concerns, I really appreciate your engagement. This is one of the reasons why we release things 10 days in advance, so that we can get kind of a temperature gauge on how the population is feeling. I know that not everyone is going to agree with me, but I think we're in a really scary time. We have an incoming president who has promised to raise tariffs to the point that things are going to get very expensive for a lot of us. And after some reflection, I no longer believe that this is the best use of our money in the face of what will most likely be, pretty devastating to a lot of people. And just for clarification, these are my own personal views and not speaking on behalf of the committee when I say that. But we went through a process where we discussed 5 guiding principles and identified 10 different strategies for how we are going to apply, or how we are going to address raises for all elected officials. We ultimately ended up going with the one that the most people felt like adhered to all 5 of our guiding principles. And sorry. And once we had done that, the way that things shook out is that City Council would be receiving a percentage of the mayor, and the clerk and the mayor would both be, charted as full-time employees, which they are statutorily in code, as salary grades 14 and 13, because elected officials do not receive longevity pay in the same way that civil city servants do. we ultimately decided to go with the midpoint, also keeping in mind that elected officials' salaries can never be decreased according to state code. So that was how we, began to approach setting different salaries. And for city council, we took a poll of all the different council members and asked them how many hours they thought people should be spending on council a week. The minimum was 12, the maximum was 26 hours per week. And so in an effort to, be on the lower end, we did take the 12 and divide that by 40, which ultimately brought us to 30%. And so I hope you understand how we got to the process, and I also understand that a lot of people are upset. I hear you, and I want to just assure you that Councilmember Daley and I will be working on an amendment this weekend. And I guess just thank you for everyone for being a part of this process, and thank you to my committee members.
All right, thank you for that committee report. And as mentioned, we will have a special session to discuss the proposed ordinance on Tuesday, December 10th at 7:30, and then we will have a second reading with further discussion next Wednesday during our regular session. Now we will move on to public comment, and this is for items not on the agenda. So the ordinance that Councilmember Zulik just discussed as a committee report is on the agenda, so we will not be taking public comment on that. So if you want to come back next Tuesday or next Wednesday, that's fine. But is there anybody in council chambers who would like to give public comment on items not on the agenda? And if so, you can approach the podium and you'll have up to 3 minutes. And we do ask that you sign in and also state your name at the start of your comments. And if you are joining us via Zoom, then please use the raise hand function, which is usually under the reactions button at the bottom of your screen. And if you're having trouble with that, you can also send a chat to the meeting host. And we will start here in council chambers. And there is a total of 20 minutes set aside for this part of the meeting.
Hello, my name is Darryl Rubel. I had a great experience today with a woman I talked to today for the very first time, really, and I was blown away by her professionalism and her the way she handled the questions I asked her. Ease my mind. I'm going through some stuff at my house right now with some stuff that's going on, but Rebecca Davis in hand department, she's a keeper. She eased a lot of my pain, a lot of stuff. I'm going through some stuff back to last week with my trailer. I live in a trailer, and it's been, but I want to say thank you to her. And it's nice you got employees like that, and man, she was really good and eased all my pain. And maybe I can sleep tonight. Thank you.
All right, do we have anybody raising a hand on Zoom? No? Okay, the next person here in chambers, please come to the podium.
My name is John DeCastro. I have a question about the city noise ordinance. Right now I live in an apartment above the Tap, which is like this bar on the square. I've been dealing with like constant like booming bass for like their entire, from like 11 until 2 on the weekends, and then just like whenever they're open. I've talked to my landlord, the police, as well as employees at the business, and nothing has changed. I've been told that they have a special permit that exempts them from the noise ordinance, or that the noise ordinance doesn't apply to businesses. I was wondering if you guys could clarify on that.
So during our council meetings, we don't have a back and forth with members of the public, but if you'd like to leave your email address with the clerk, the deputy clerk, we could get back with you afterwards.
That would be awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member of the public like to make a comment? Do we have anybody on Zoom? All right. Well, then we will move on to appointments to boards and commissions. Do we have any appointments to make? I think there's one, Team C.
So I have a version of an appointment, actually a de-appointment.
Councilmember Ruff.
Yeah, I would like to move that Jenna Buckner be removed due to non-attendance from the CAPS Commission.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second? This is something we had voted on at our last regular session to alert a member of the public that they would be removed unless they presented an argument not to be, and there was no response from this individual, so.
I'll second.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second to remove Jenna Buckner from CAPS Commission. Any questions, comments? Will the deputy clerk please call the roll on the motion to remove Jenna Buckner?
Councilmember Rallo?
Yes.
Ruff?
Yes.
Piedmont Smith?
Yes.
Stossberg?
Yes.
Asari?
Yes.
Rosenbarger?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes.
And Zulik?
Yes.
Thanks.
Okay, and I thought there was an appointment from Team C.
Yes, there is. I would like to move on behalf of Interview Committee Team C that Claudia Lara be appointed to seat C4 of the Commission on Hispanic and Latino Affairs.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to appoint Claudia Lara to the Hispanic and Latino Affairs Commission. Any discussion, questions, comments? All right, will the deputy clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Ruff?
Yes.
Piedmont Smith?
Yes.
Stossberg?
Yes.
Asari?
Yes.
Rosenbarger?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes.
Zulik?
Yes.
And Rallo?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, that motion is approved. And next we will move to legislation for first readings.
I would like to move that ordinance 2024-26 be introduced and read by the clerk by title and synopsis only.
Second.
Will the deputy clerk please call the roll on the motion to introduce?
Councilmember Piedmont Smith?
Yes.
Stossberg?
Yes.
Asari?
Yes.
Rosenbarger?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes.
Rallo?
Yes.
And Ruff?
Yes.
That motion passes. Will the clerk please read?
Ordinance 2024-26 to fix the salaries of all elected city officials for the city of Bloomington for the year 2025. The synopsis is this ordinance sets the maximum 2025 salary rate for all elected city officials for the city of Bloomington.
All right, and as I mentioned before, this will be discussed at a special session next Tuesday.
I'd like to move that appropriation ordinance 2024-09 be introduced and read by the clerk by title and synopsis only.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Will the deputy clerk please call the roll, the chief deputy clerk, please call the roll for introducing this ordinance?
Councilmember Stossberg?
Yes.
Asari?
Yes.
Rosenbarger?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes.
Rallo?
Yes.
Ruff?
Yes.
Piedmont Smith?
Yes. That motion passes. Will the clerk please read?
Appropriation Ordinance 2024-09, to specially appropriate from the General Fund, Economic Development LIT Fund, Parks and Rec General Fund, Public Safety LIT Fund, ARPA Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, and Alternative Transportation Fund expenditures not otherwise appropriated, appropriating various transfers of funds within the General Fund, Economic Development Lit Fund, Parks and Rec General Fund, Public Safety Lit Fund, ARPA Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, and the Alternative Transportation Fund. And the synopsis is, this ordinance appropriates various transfers of funds within the General Fund, Economic Development Lit Fund, Parks and Recreation General Fund, Public Safety Lit Fund, ARPA Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, and Alternative Transportation Fund.
Thank you, and that will move to a second reading on December 11th.
I'd like to move that ordinance 2024-25 be introduced and read by the clerk by title and synopsis only.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to introduce this item for first reading. Will the clerk please call the roll on the motion?
Councilmember Asari?
Yes.
Rosenbarger?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes.
Rallo?
Yes.
Ruff?
Yes.
Piedmont Smith?
Yes,
And Stossberg.
Yes.
the motion passes. Will the clerk please read?
Give me 1 second, please. Ordinance 2024-27.
25.
Sorry, yes, thank you. 1 second. Wrong addendum. Ordinance 2024-25, an ordinance to amend Ordinance 2325 that fixed the salaries of appointed officers, non-union, and AFSCME employees, and for all the departments of the City of Bloomington, Monroe County, Indiana, for the year 2024. The synopsis is, this ordinance amends Ordinance 2325, which set the maximum 2024 salary for all appointed officers, non-union, and AFSCME employees for all of the departments of the City of Bloomington, Indiana. The amendment reflects a desire to provide a one-time payment to all AFSCME employees in 2025 of $500.
Thank you.
I'd like to move that ordinance 2024-20-27 be introduced and read by the clerk by title and synopsis only.
It's been moved and seconded to introduce this item for first reading. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Rosenbarger.
Yes.
Flaherty.
Yes.
Zulik.
Yes.
Rallo.
Yes.
Ruff.
Yes.
Piedmont Smith.
Yes,
Stossberg.
Yes.
And Asari.
Yes.
that motion passes. Will the clerk please read?
Ordinance 2024-27, to amend Title II of the Bloomington Municipal Code entitled Administration and Personnel. And the synopsis is, this ordinance amends Title II of the Bloomington Municipal Code, Administration and Personnel, to remove the Traffic Commission, Bicycle Pedestrian Safety Commission, and Parking Commission, and establish a new 9-member Advisory Transportation Commission. The Advisory Transportation Commission will make recommendations on relevant transportation and parking sections of the Bloomington Municipal Code, review all transportation-related projects, and propose policies that promote safe, equitable, and sustainable transportation and parking decisions. Additionally, this ordinance amends Title 15 of the Bloomington Municipal Code, Vehicles and Traffic, to replace references of the Bicycle Pedestrian Safety Commission with references to the Advisory Transportation Commission.
Thank you.
I would like to move Resolution 2024-26 be introduced and read by the clerk by title and synopsis only.
Second.
All right, we've moved on to legislation for second reading and resolutions. So it's been moved and seconded to introduce Resolution 2024-26. Will the clerk please call the roll on the motion?
Councilmember Flaherty.
Yes.
Zulik?
Yes.
Rallo?
Yes.
Ruff?
Yes.
Piedmont Smith?
Yes.
Stassberg?
Yes.
Asare?
Yes.
And Rosenberger.
Yes.
Resolution
That motion
20
passes.
Resolution 2024-26, to approve the interlocal agreement between Monroe County, the Town of Ellettsville, and the City of Bloomington for animal shelter operation for the year 2025. The synopsis is, this resolution authorizes execution by the mayor and Director of Animal Care and Control of the Animal Shelter Interlocal Agreement for fiscal year 2025 between the City of Bloomington, Monroe County, and Town of Ellettsville. The agreement provides that Monroe County shall pay the City of Bloomington the sum of $433,122.80 for 2025 in return for the space the city provides to the county and services it renders on the county's behalf. The agreement further provides that the Town of Ellettsville shall pay the City of Bloomington the sum of $23,158.30 for 2025 in return for the space the city provides the Town of Ellettsville and services it renders on the Town of Ellettsville's behalf. Excuse me.
Thank you.
I move Resolution 2024-26 be adopted.
Second.
All right, and who do we have presenting this evening? Mr. Virgil Souter of Animal Care and Control. Welcome.
Good evening. I'm Virgil Souter, Director of Animal Care and Control. So the resolution this evening is a continuation of a long agreement between us and the Monroe County and the Town of Ellettsville for animal sheltering services. The reimbursement rate for 2025 total comes to the $456,281.10. This formula is calculated by looking at actual numbers for shelter expenditures and animal intake from the previous full year. So for the 2025 agreement, these are figures coming from 2023. The animal shelter operation expenditures are then reduced by the actual adoption revenue expenditures from the same year, and then that is divided by the total number of animals brought into the shelter in that year to come up with a cost per animal amount. And then that is applied to the number of animals from the Town of Ellettsville and the County of Monroe that were brought in by that same year. So again, we're talking about 2023 numbers to come up with the agreement. For the 2025 interlocal agreement, I will note that the percentage of expenditures considered shelter operations was increased from a 56%, which was used in years past, to 65%. That change is due to the sheltering costs rising at a higher rate than other program costs within the animal care and control budget. And I'd like to send my appreciation to both the County of Monroe and the Town of Ellettsville for recognizing that need. This agreement will allow us to continue consistent and compassionate care for all stray and unwanted animals in our county, as well as providing a centralized location for all individuals needing lost and found animal services in our area. So I'd entertain any questions anybody has.
Thank you very much, Director Souter. Councilmember Asare.
Thank you so much. Just curious with the funding arrangement, if there's any substantial changes to the funding formula, and particularly accounting for inflation or increased cost, and whether it's sustainable.
So the difference is just in the percentage. So it looks at whatever the budget was that year, what we spent. So 2025, we look at what we actually spent in the year 2023. And came up with that number. So as we move forward, it's the previous full year amount, if that makes sense.
And you think that's tracking with, it's a good estimate of current costs?
It's a good estimate. I will say in the negotiation this year, we did prepare both the County of Monroe and Town of Ellettsville that we might need to increase the percentage again next year. Of what is considered as shelter operations, because again, our medical costs in the shelter are increasing at a higher rate than every other cost.
Right, exactly. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from council members? Councilmember Rallo.
Thank you. I had a couple questions. One is, so we get reimbursed for boarding and the cost of processing, adoption, and so forth, but also code enforcement. So if you are, say, you have a call in Ellettsville, for instance, of animal abuse or cruelty, you respond to that, and does Ellettsville reimburse us for that as well?
So that's a great question. So what our role is with the city department is we would take that call and we would dispatch it to Monroe County animal management officers, and they would respond there. So the county, the town of Ellettsville and Monroe County have an agreement. The Monroe County officers actually enforce the ordinances there. Our role is to take the call and pass it on.
Gotcha, okay. And my other question was about receiving animals from outside the county. Do we still do that for a fee? Is that, and is it a substantial amount? Are we getting adequately compensated for the, for whatever we charge for animals to be dropped off at our shelter?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So we do still take in, we are holding steady at about 12 to 13% of our intake for the past 5-6 years. We've kind of held that number, are coming from sources outside Monroe County. The fee that we take in could stand to be bumped up again. It's fair. Our concern with a higher fee is always going to be, we don't want those animals just dumped in our county that we have to go out and then pick up. So we always have to kind of balance that line.
Yeah, there is a balance there, I understand. Just one more, may I? What do the euthanasia rates look like year on year? Are they leveled? I know we were getting very low, if not towards zero. Is that true, or we were? Why don't you respond to that? You know what I'm asking.
It's excellent. So our euthanasia rates are kind of fluctuate between 4% and 6% every year. So that is an incredibly low number, considering that we do animal control. So we are interacting with hit by car animals and aggressive animals that should not be released out into the community. So I'm very, very pleased with that figure.
So 4 to 6% is the total number of animals
euthanized. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Great, thank you.
Are there other questions for Mr. Souter? Okay, I have a couple of just technical questions regarding the agreement itself. So it says in item 8, this agreement shall be administered through a joint board composed of representatives of the city, county, and town. What is that joint board?
Do you want to? This is a fairly new rule, so I'm going to have Alex answer that question.
Hello, Alexandrina Pratt with City Legal. So under item 8, we've had to introduce that in the agreement because a statute that guides interlocal agreement requires it. So the parties are informed of this requirement, and they are ready and willing to come up with representatives for this board, but it's more of a it's more to satisfy the statute than to serve any particular purpose at this point.
So it will just convene as needed?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And maybe you can stay there for my other question too. So then number 9 says payments shall be made semi-annually to the controller of the city upon the timely submission of a claim. So what are the claims based on, or is it just like one claim that takes care of the whole payment? Do you know?
So yeah. Sure. Thank you.
So the city controller basically sends out notice twice a year to the County of Monroe and the town of Ellettsville of basically half the amount, and then at that point in time, that's the claim that they they then pay. So twice a year it's sent out.
Okay, so it's not based on like number of animals or anything, it's just
No, it's
divided
just,
in
it's
half?
just divided in half, exactly.
Okay, thank you. All right, that's all the only questions I had. I don't see any other hands raised, so we can go to the public. Is there any member of the public who would like to comment on Resolution 2024-26, the agreement with the county of Ellettsville regarding the animal shelter? I don't see anybody in chambers. If you're on Zoom and would like to make a comment, you can use the raise hand function, which should be under the reactions button. Do you see any hands, Deputy Attorney Kulak? Nope, okay. All right, well then we can come back to council members for any final comments. Are there any comments? Councilmember Rollo.
Well, of course, I'll support this, and I just want to thank Director Souter and your staff for your good and at times, I'm sure, very difficult work. And I'm extremely impressed by such a low rate of euthanasia, and I know that that is a very active goal of your group to keep that number low. I remember in the past it was much higher. This was long ago, before you arrived, and so I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other council member comments? All right, I also just want to express my gratitude towards Animal Care and Control. They do excellent work. Clerk McDowell, please call the roll on the resolution 2024-26.
Yes.
Ruff?
Yes.
Piedmont Smith?
Yes.
Stossberg? Yes. Asari?
Yes.
Rosenbarger?
Yes.
And Flaherty?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. That resolution passes with a vote of 8-0.
I would like to move that Resolution 2024-27 be introduced and read by the clerk by title and synopsis only.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Rollo?
Yes.
Ruff?
Yes.
Piedmont Smith?
Yes.
Stossberg?
Yes.
Asari?
Yes.
Rosenbarger?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes.
And Zulik? Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. That passes 8-0. Will the clerk please read?
Resolution 2024-27, approval of interlocal cooperation agreement between the City of Bloomington and Monroe County, Indiana, regarding Building Code Authority. The synopsis is the interlocal cooperation agreement extends through January 1st, 2027, the long-term arrangement between the City of Bloomington and Monroe County to combine and coordinate the provision of certain building code services. This interlocal cooperation is authorized by Indiana Code 36-1-7 et sec. Sorry, I don't know how to say that.
Thank you.
I'd like to move Resolution 2024-27 be adopted.
Second.
All right. And who do we have to present this item this evening? Corporation Counsel Margie Rice.
Hello, I'm Margie Rice, Corporation Counsel for the City of Bloomington. I'm going to introduce this, and then I'm going to turn it over to David Hiddle, who is our Director of Planning and Transportation. He can talk about the sort of inner workings between the city and the county in how this operates. I can tell you, historically, the City of Bloomington and Monroe County government had both an interlocal for planning purposes as well as one for building. We years ago, I think it was in 2012, the planning interlocal went by the wayside. We have always had standalone planning departments, but we cooperated in terms of we had an interlocal for planning in a 2-mile fringe. We have never, since that time, gotten rid of our building interlocal. This provides a lot of continuity for residents to go to a single building department, whether they are building in the city or the county. It has worked well, Not that it isn't without some hiccups. We have a different software system at the city than the county has, and that's been, I think, a source of frustration for both departments, how to sort of work through some of those issues. One of the things that we changed in this draft of the interlocal is to provide for quarterly meetings between the city and county staff. And I talked to my counterpart over at the county, Dave Schilling, who is a longtime municipal lawyer, and he said they are looking forward to those sort of formal opportunities. Not that staff, we pick up the phone and talk when we have problems, both in legal and in planning, or the building calls us, but we'll have kind of formal meetings to really sit down and flesh out how are things working. You may notice we are doing this agreement for 2 years. We have typically done 1 year building interlocals. We decided to just do 2 years, give ourselves a little bit of time to not have to worry about this again next year, give some continuity, and see how this communication sort of works. I heard from the county that they would have liked a 5-year interlocal. That would have pushed us beyond Mayor Thompson's first term, so that wasn't something that we were interested in doing. But this is, other than the communication piece and changing some of the titles to just update them, this is exactly the same. So the county's going to have this on their agenda. I believe the county council will have it on their December 11th agenda, I believe. And so I fully expect it to get passed by them at that time. If you have any legal questions about interlocals, same process for this interlocal as the animal interlocal. State law allows us to share authority via interlocal agreement, and it's just been we do it with dispatch, we do it with animal, we do it with building. It's a really great way to be efficient with government resources. So I'll let David take over if he has any questions, or if you have any questions for me, I'll be in the back of the room.
Good evening, David Hiddle, Director of the Planning and Transportation Department. So the interlocal we bring to you this year is essentially the same as we've brought in years past. They've, I think, over the last several years, been 1-year arrangements. This time we're coming back with a 2-year arrangement. And the other difference is that we've not codified, but we've put in writing the agreement that we put into place earlier this year, which is to have quarterly meetings between our department and the Monroe County Building Department, just to make sure questions are answered and kind of head off any concerns. We are running a little bit ahead this year of where we were last year in terms of total permits issued. 636, I think, was the 2023 count, and we're at about 654 so far year to date. The arrangement works well. We work well with Bobby LaRue, who is the building commissioner for the county, and his staff of 5 building inspectors. So we're bringing this to you for your approval tonight, and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you both for your introductions. Are there any questions from council members? Councilmember Strasburg?
I'm just wondering, there's, in the animal shelter one, there was kind of a certain fee that was paid. Is there any kind of real fiscal impact on this, or is this interlocal more about cooperation and communication between departments?
It is the latter. Where money changes hands here, it is where the permit applicant pays a fee to the county for their portion of the services, and then a fee to us for our portion of the services. But it's a symbiotic relationship otherwise between the county and the city.
Okay, so in terms of those, so the individual getting the permit basically, in older language, writes 2 checks?
Yeah.
So if we did not have this relationship, could I assume that individual would end up having to write larger checks? I guess I'm asking, is this a cost savings for residents who are seeking permits in any way?
I don't know that it's that. I mean, if we had our own building department, would it cost less for the permit applicant?
No, I'm actually wondering if we each had to have our own departments, would it actually cost more for the applicant?
More, yeah. I don't know that there's cost savings for the permit applicant with this arrangement. There's certainly the benefit of familiarity with having the same sets of rules apply to both the county and the city. We hear that people do like that fact, builders and developers, but I'm not sure about the savings component, if that would be
Okay,
significant or real.
okay. But it's a smoother process, which would then save time, presumably?
There are advantages to the city and the county utilizing one building code, one building department, one set of processes. There may be disadvantages as well, but there are advantages.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Sare.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for the presentation. I know that we've talked about, I've talked with the mayor, and I know the administration shares and the business community shares a interest in improving permitting processes sort of across the ecosystem, really, I guess we should say, and necessary preamble for my question, but and I know that a lot of the feedback that we get when asking people about permitting here is that it's quite complex. I'm curious about the tool of an interlocal, and whether in this long ongoing process that you're leading in terms of trying to improve permitting, how we're approaching the interlocal agreement to address pain points between us and the county, and what sort of mechanisms maybe were discussed to put in it, because I'm particularly, when we think about it being 2 years, I guess is really why I'm asking this question, that sort of iterative nature. Does it give us the space to continue to make improvements to how we work together, and have we considered putting any provisions specifically in the interlocal to improve some of the pain points that we're already aware of?
Yeah, there's language in here that I think compels both parties to utilize the systems in as efficient a manner as possible. We have had our IT leadership meet with the county's IT leadership along with department leadership to try to work through some communication gaps. They have a system that speaks one language, we have a system that speaks another language, looking towards an idea that maybe there can be an automated translation that can make the systems work really happily together. If not really happily, then I'd like to at least get them where they're in neutral territory, on speaking terms. We are also learning our system, EPL. We've been in the process for the better part of the year of rebuilding our workflows with our IT department, and that is progressing slowly, but progressing. And as that progresses, we're getting faster on our end. Additionally, we're going to be filling a long vacant position in our department that's going to add some manpower to the whole process, which is going to help. So, I think the language in the interlocal does grant us the flexibility to make or even require some changes in terms of the way that we communicate with the county. The whole thing is getting better as we speak.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Have we thought about specifically including benchmarks for permitting timelines to ensure accountability and efficiency between parties?
I'm sorry?
Have we thought about, for example, putting benchmarks within the interlocal, I think, like to actually create a structure of accountability within the relationship, right?
We hadn't thought about benchmarks in the interlocal. Benchmarks, I think the interlocal is not what's keeping us from delivering completed permits as timely, in as timely a manner as we could. I think that's mostly internal on our end.
That makes sense.
And we will be employing benchmarks there.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions from council members? Councilmember Ruff.
Yeah, I should probably know this, but does the city staff still do the inspections of like land disturbing activities and the erosion sediment control efforts on construction sites?
Yes, site inspections, now it's changed a bit since CBU took over Title 13, which is MS4, which is water quality, making sure that sites meet water quality metrics and requirements as mandated by the state and the federal government. But we still handle site inspections to the extent that we verify that the site is developed in a manner consistent with approved site plans, primarily with regards to landscaping. Other things like bike racks and configurations of sidewalks, site features outside of the building, and then of course the county takes care of the inspection of everything within the building.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Councilmember Asari.
My last set of questions. One of the things that that was throughout the budget for this coming year was the stated goal of improving public engagement and transparency. How do you feel about our ability to create, I don't know, some type of a mechanism, I think for feedback from applicants to report issues, and particularly as relating to one system interfacing with the other. So how are we collecting user feedback in their user journeys with permitting in the city, and is that built into our communication mechanisms with the county?
That will become easier and more readily available when we actually initiate our public portal. Right now, you cannot apply for your building permit online. When we're hoping that in the early part of 2025, we'll have that component of the system up and running, and then that will allow for easier feedback. In the meantime, there's no shortage of feedback, and we are actively speaking with developers, builders groups, the types of people that we want to make sure are using the process well and efficiently, and are hearing quite a bit about that from them.
Excellent. Excellent. And then just a final follow-up, just thinking about this body, are there other pain points? Just thinking about future work and other things down the pike, down in the future. Are there other pain points or ways that we can act proactively, actively, in unison, in support of the administration to further facilitate the improvement of our permitting processes?
It's a great question. I'd like to take some time to think about it. Nothing jumps immediately to mind.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
Councilmember Flaherty.
Thank you, Director Hiddle. I wanted to follow up. I believe in response to one of Councilmember Asari's questions, you said something like barriers or challenges to a more efficient permitting system or processing of permits was like, quote, like mostly on our end or something like that. Could you elaborate on what you mean by that?
Yeah, well, I think when I say our end, I mean the city's end. We are, at the same time that, we're working with the county, we're working very actively with CBU, even engineering in hand, to make sure that our communication, these are the bodies that we work with when we're processing permits and reviewing them and making comments, soliciting comments, getting feedback, acting on those comments again. There's communication that could be made better between us and other city departments that we are actively working on. In fact, we met with Kat Zager, the new director of CBU, just yesterday to put together sort of a program of continued meetings and process improvement ideas that we're actually going to be implementing at the beginning of the year. So when I say we, our department could be better internally, but it also has to do with our department interfacing better with other city departments.
Got it.
Yeah, and it's kind of a complex. I could go into more detail about what where the gaps are, but it's kind of a complex thing that we have to solve. I think just sort of one conversation at a time.
Got it. Thank you. Maybe follow up specifically on the internal piece. Are staff turnover or experience, kind of longevity, those kind of things, a pain point at all in speed or expertise with processing permits?
Yeah, I think we've talked about this a lot internally. It's probably a 3-year trek to become a new employee to a seasoned employee who's really able to work quickly and efficiently with the zoning ordinance to review, complex permit cases in light of the whole of the ordinance and do it quickly. And we're just not often able to keep people for 3 years. So when we're not able to do that, it slows our response time. So yeah, that is part of it.
Got it. And do you think more competitive compensation would help with that challenge?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
All right, any other council member questions? All right, seeing none, thank you. We will go to the public. Is there any member of the public who would like to comment on Resolution 2024-27, the Building Code Interlocal Agreement? We'll start here in council chambers, but if you are on Zoom and if you would like to make a comment on this item, you can use the raise hand function, which should be under the reactions button at the bottom of your screen.
Good evening, Madam President. This is Christopher MG from the Greater Bloomington Chamber of Commerce. I was just looking at our 2024 legislative agenda, and one of the items I'm looking at is initiatives and projects that increase government transparency and accessibility. This agreement does that. Another one of our priorities is improved city-county relations, and this does that. I want to give my hats off to Planning Director Mr. David Hiddle on the work he has done as far as accessibility done, taking the feedback, I think, from the Chamber and other entities on the development goes. And what this does is work toward efficiency and collaboration, which I think benefits all of us, both the county and the city. We're in this together. This is not us against them, and the more we have that sort of mentality, I think the more we all sort of improve. And the questions we've heard from Councilmember Sari kind of goes to that as well. I think we're going in the right direction, and clearly from Mr. Hiddle's comments, this is not going to happen in a day, but we are getting more efficient, more transparent by the second. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Deputy Attorney Kulak, do we have anybody on Zoom? No? Okay. The next person here in council chambers, if you could please approach the podium and sign in and state your name, you'll have up to 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Joe Davis. I've been a builder for over 3 decades. When I look through this interlocal agreement, there's one thing that jumps out immediately to me, and that is that the city is getting the best deal in this interlocal agreement. The county does not have the same funds that the city has. The burden of all of the inspections falls to the county building department. They are underfunded, understaffed. It takes forever for them to be able to just make inspections for rental properties for hand. The city is getting reimbursed for their compliance with, for their certificate of zoning compliance work, which is really a work that is all about risk mitigation. The city should be funding this department themselves instead of passing on that burden to the county to collect these fees. This is again another situation where the county is getting shortchanged. The county also has to forgive the collection of fees under point G in Part 2 for projects located within the corporate limits of the city. The county agrees to recognize and enforce Section 20.04.110 of the BMC, which provides for the waiver of fees under specified conditions for eligible affordable housing and sustainable development projects. They still have to be inspected. It doesn't matter if they're sustainable or not. Someone has to pay that cost. Why is this being shifted onto the county, who is hurting compared to the city? The city has so much money, everybody's getting a big raise everywhere, all the time. Let's take care of the county as well. Thank you.
All right. Is there anybody else who would like to comment on Resolution 2024-27? I don't see anybody else in council chambers. Deputy Attorney Kulak, is there anybody on Zoom? Okay. Well, we will come back to council for any follow-up questions or final comments. And I will just follow up with a question raised by a member of the public regarding the city kind of taking advantage of the county financially in this arrangement. Can anybody, it was my understanding that the county collects its own fees for the work it does. Can somebody speak to that, please?
Yeah, I think that the county has always expressed that this is, as David said, a symbiotic relationship. It's mutually beneficial, and they think it's a good idea. They would have the building department no matter what, and so I don't think this has been burdensome to them. They've never expressed that concern. Certainly when I was talking with Dave Schilling, he didn't express that at all to me. I was a former county attorney. I've been a county attorney for several years. Never did I hear that concern over at the county. And so that would be a surprise to me if they thought that. They are taking this issue up. Again, the county council will have this for their review. The commissioners have to sign it. If they have a concern, I'm sure that that would be expressed by them, probably through their attorney to me, and I would be sure to let you guys know.
Can you answer specifically whether, now the building inspection, there's a fee for the inspection of the actual buildings, and that actually does go to the county government, is that right?
Yep, they get that. And then they just pass along our fee to us. It's not a huge administrative burden for them to do that. I don't know if David Hiddle wants to talk about anything operationally, if he's heard any concerns on their part, but yeah, they collect their own fees and they keep that, and then they just pass our fee along. We do send people over there to, to communicate with them, pick up things. It's not, we certainly don't feel like we think we're dumping on them and making them do our work. But, not that I don't appreciate the perspective that was shared, I just don't know that, I can say that I've never heard that from the county, either as a county attorney or as a city attorney.
Yeah, the main thing I wanted to clarify is that residents do pay a fee that the county keeps for the building inspection,
That's
which
right,
is common throughout the state.
And they also receive, income tax, just like we do when the income tax was passed. They received a bump up in income tax at the same time the city did, proportionally. So,
thank you. Any other follow-up questions, Councilmember Stossberg?
I just want to follow that line for just a second. I thought that I heard you say earlier that there was a desire by somebody originally to try to make this a 5-year interlocal agreement, but the city was not good with that because it exceeded our mayor's term. Was that the county that was interested in actually making this a much longer contract?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any final comments from council members before we vote? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll on Resolution 2024-27?
Councilmember Ruff?
Yes.
Piedmont Smith?
Yes.
Stossberg?
Yes.
Asari?
Yes.
Rosenbarger?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes.
Zulik?
Yes.
And Rallo?
Yes.
Thank you.
And that motion passes 8-0.
Councilman President Piedmont Smith, may I be recognized at this time? There's a motion I'd like to make at this time, but I don't want to jump in without officially being recognized.
Is it related to the next item on the
It
agenda?
is. It is.
Yes, you can go ahead.
Thank you. I'd just like to make a motion that we postpone Resolution 2024-20 to January 22nd, 2025. I know we haven't yet officially approved our calendar for next year yet, but I think we could work with it if that date didn't turn out to be a regular session. Any two council members could propose a change. But I'd just like to make that motion.
All right, there's a motion and a second to postpone consideration of, what is it?
2024-20.
Resolution 2024-20 until January 22nd, 2025. Are there questions about the motion? Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Councilmember Asari?
Maybe I can phrase this actually as a question. I seem to recall that the urgency was so that we could apply for funding under Safe Streets for All. I think that was the main impetus here. So I would just so that we consider it correctly, I think that it would be appropriate to ask. Am I correct am I allowed to ask the audience a question? I'm correct in that, right? The deadline was so you can apply for funding? Okay. And is that like a real deadline, or is it like a hopeful deadline?
Could I ask a staff member to approach the podium and give us feedback on the timeliness of this matter?
And I'd like to actually, as the person who made the motion, I appreciated staff's responses to questions I presented about what really was the deadline to really make it so that it could feasibly, all the grant opportunities would still be available. And my sense was that staff said, well, we'd prefer to just do it now, but January probably works. If I'm wrong about that, I'm sorry, I misunderstood, but I did want to just mention that I'd had this conversation with staff and that they were very responsive, and I appreciate that.
Mr. Roebling, would you like to speak to this?
Sure. Ryan Roebling, Planning and Services Manager from Planning and Transportation Department. Yes, so there was a concern previously that when we last spoke, I believe even, there had been no idea of when the notice of funding opportunity might potentially open for next year, and previously they had moved it up by months each time. So we were concerned. Now it appears they've updated the website that they believe it will open in March, but that is not definitive. So we are comfortable if with January, if that is all what you all choose to do. So yeah.
And can I ask a follow-up question to Councilmember Reff? So could you tell us why you'd like to postpone it, sir?
Well, yeah, thank you for providing that opportunity for me to explain that a little bit. I understand that the SS4A Steering Committee is sort of the interim ATC until it's actually members are appointed and it's formed, and they're very familiar with the document, and that ATC may itself not be officially formed by that point. So, I was hoping that it would provide an opportunity for that body, the new Advisory Transportation Commission, to be able to weigh in their official capacity. I understand that they may not be in position to do that at that point, January 22nd, but even that said, I would like to provide council members and the interested public, a little more time if it's there, if it's harmless, relatively harmless, to provide a little more time to digest, study, and review and consider the plan. And that's my thinking.
Councilmember Roller?
May I make a comment? We're about to create the new commission next week. I don't see I mean, if we do have a window, I would appreciate the input of the ATC, since they'll, after all, be actively involved in its implementation. Perhaps they will have some addition or corrections or comments for us. So I feel that a delay wouldn't be a bad idea in that case, for fresh eyes to look at the document and to, whose business it is going to review transportation-related policies. Thanks.
I would just like to posit that the ATC probably won't be fully appointed before the January 22nd meeting. And also this, there was a steering committee for this plan, and so I don't mind postponing until January to give the public and council members a chance to better fully review the plan and the appendices. However, I hesitate to bring it to the ATC because it's already gone through a steering committee process, and I feel like it would just open it up to taking another 2 months, really, if we brought it to the ATC, and then we would miss those federal grant application deadlines. Councilmember Strasburg?
I just wanted to ask Mr. Roebling if the current Traffic Commission, Bike Ped Commission, any of those current commissions that are going to, in theory, roll into the ATC have looked at this in any way, have had a representative on the steering committee, what the relationship has been?
Our council attorney has been wanting to say something. Attorney Lehner, do you have?
We did some research, and it appears that the postponement couldn't extend beyond the next meeting in December as opposed to January.
Mm-hmm. So it would have to be tabled indefinitely and then a new resolution brought?
I think that would be one option if you're not willing to postpone it until just the subsequent meeting next week.
Okay, because it's the end of a calendar year.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Roebling, did you want to respond to Councilmember Strasburg's?
Yeah, sure. Ryan Roebling again. This was presented to Traffic Commission and the Bicycle Pedestrian Safety Commission. Also, 2 members of each of those bodies were on the steering committee.
Okay, thank you. In light of the information from our attorney, do we need to withdraw that particular motion if it's not actually within rules to postpone it that long, and either have a motion to postpone until next week or have a motion to table? And as a point of interest, motioning to table is not debatable.
What say the sponsor or the makers of, what does Councilmember Ruff say as he has made the motion?
I'd just like to hear staff's advice, guidance on what to do. If in truth, staff doesn't have a strong objection and majority of council members are okay with a little more time, and a little more time means January, really. What would you suggest?
The reason I pointed out the postponement issue is because I don't think you can state and vote that it would be postponed until January on the basis that you had mentioned earlier. So, I think it would be treated as an indefinite postponement. And then I think in January, really, the process would initiate again, could be presented again at that point.
Okay, I just got an idea. Let me ask. So after next week's meeting, the next regular session, unless we count the organizational meeting as a regular session, which it's not, it's called the organizational meeting. The next regular session is January 22nd, right? Or when is the next regular session?
It would be if the proposed schedule is
Okay.
adopted.
So my question then is, if we did this exact same thing I'm trying to propose now, next week, does it become okay because the next regular session is January 22nd? And we'll have entertained our schedule at that point?
I honestly don't know the answer to that question. If you could postpone it to the next meeting and then postpone it again. It seems like it's just an evasion of that rule. That would be my gut reaction. But I don't know that to be true.
Okay, thank you.
Based on the image that Attorney Kulak sent me, a question cannot be postponed beyond the end of the present session. And our present session ends at our meeting next week.
In that context, a session is a calendar year?
I think that's referring to the current legislative session, which ends on December 11th.
Just for clarity, this is state law, or why can't we postpone?
No, I think this is Robert's Rules of Order.
Why don't we suspend the rules? Can't we just do something like that? If it's a Robert's Rules thing, it doesn't feel like.
Well, right now, there's a motion on the table that we can't actually approve because it's a violation. So if we wanted to do that, we would still have to take the motion that's currently on the table off the table and redo a motion. And if we want to suspend the rules, I suppose we could suspend the rules. That requires an entirely different motion with an entirely different set of processes and a different, let me find my cheat sheet. If we, to suspend the rules, you need, where is it? We need a 2/3 majority, whereas if we table or postpone something, we only need a simple majority. Okay. So it does change the process, the procedure. So.
It seems to me that to accomplish the same goal that Councilmember Ruff expressed, we could move to table this indefinitely, which just basically means it goes away at the end of the year, and then it could come forward under a new resolution number after January 1st. That motion cannot be debated, so if there's any further debate, I suggest we do that while the current motion is on the table, and then that can be withdrawn.
So does staff have any concerns with the approach that President Peter Smith just laid out as an option? Letting it die now and then just bringing it back in January, basically, right?
Ryan Rolling again. Concerns is an interesting term. I don't know. I mean, I haven't had enough time to think about it. I would be concerned about Plan Commission. Yeah, so that would kick it back to Plan Commission again, which would add another 30-ish days.
So the recommendation from the Plan Commission does not extend into January?
Oh, yeah, that makes sense, yeah. It's attached to this resolution, which you would not be voting on. So then you would have to have a new resolution
From the Plan Commission?
Well, yeah, yes.
And the Plan Commission next meets when?
I don't know.
We meet next Monday at 9. I'm more concerned about pushing this off until January 22nd because the Plan Commission has to take it back anyway because we've amended it from what they originally did. I mean, it's going to take it to February 10th, I think, for the Plan Commission, and I think that that's rolling a little bit too close to grant deadlines personally, so I would like to deal with this issue tonight.
All right, any other?
I have a question. Couldn't the Plan Commission simply bring up the amendments? Since they're going to...
I believe the issue is that if the current resolution is postponed indefinitely and not acted upon by this body prior to the end of the calendar year, then the Plan Commission needs to re-adopt a new resolution number to bring the plan to us again. So they would need the January Plan Commission meeting, then it would come to us, then they would need the February Plan Commission meeting if we make any amendments. Is that correct?
That is correct, yeah. If they were to adopt the amendments that are proposed, they could come back to council, and then that, if no further amendments were made, then it would not have to go back to Plan Commission for their, whatever it's called, I can't remember, certification. So that would cut out the second meeting, but it would still have to go to the January meeting just because that's the next available meeting that we could notice for.
Yeah. So, I would say that as a result of this discussion, I'm going to gamble or guess that the majority of council members is not going to want to go through this process, do this. So with that, I'll just withdraw the motion. Do we need a second to withdraw the motion?
I don't believe so. So that motion has been withdrawn. So we can proceed with the resolution.
Yeah, I would like to move Resolution 2024-20 be introduced and read by the clerk by title and synopsis only.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Yes.
Piedmont Smith?
Yes.
Stossberg?
Yes.
Asari?
Yes.
Rosenbarger?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes.
Zulik?
Yes.
And Rallo?
No.
All right, that motion passes 7-1. Will the clerk please read? 7-1.
Resolution 2024-20 to amend the City of Bloomington's transportation plan in order to incorporate the Safe Streets and Roads for All, SS4A, Safety Action Plan. The synopsis is pursuant to state law and as directed by the Common Council in Resolution 2024-07, this resolution amends the City of Bloomington's transportation plan in order to incorporate the Safe Streets and Roads for All Safety Action Plan.
I move Resolution 2024-20 be adopted.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded, so now we can move to the presentation. Mr. Roebling? Oh, yes, actually, there is an amendment that affects the whole resolution. So I will move Amendment 2 to Resolution 2024-20.
Second.
So this amendment came out in a packet addendum this afternoon, and I do apologize that it was not released sooner, but it is not very substantive. I will just read the synopsis. This amendment is proposed by myself. Part of it comes forward at the request of Planning and Transportation and Engineering staff. This includes a revised version of the Safe Streets for All Safety Action Plan and its appendices that corrects typos, updates graphics, includes additional citations, incorporates updated engineering standards, and improves clarity. Additionally, this amendment removes one image from page 9 of Appendix C, proven safety countermeasures, that was not compliant with current city standards for crosswalks. In the section proposed by myself, this amendment also provides clarifying language to the additional information section of 3 action items and the performance measures and annual reporting section. While substantive, the changes do not alter the proposed action items themselves, but instead aim to clarify what accomplishing each action item entails. The revisions to the performance measures and annual reporting section add language specifying that some reported performance measures will include countermeasures expected to have the greatest impact on safety, drawn from those listed in Appendix C. So are there any questions about this amendment? Did we lose Councilmember Rosenbarger?
President Piedmont Smith, I might just ask if staff wants to chime in with anything at this point.
Thank you, Councilmember Piedmont Smith. We had some typos that were caught in the last meeting. Most of them were in regards to the graphics, so we've made those readable and presentable. And then there was some random typos. And then the four other more substantial amendments are just general updates to add clarity because some language was a bit confusing to the layperson who was reading this document. So.
Thank you. Would any council members have questions at this time for either the sponsor, President Piedmont Smith, or staff about the amendment? Seeing no hands, we will move to see if anyone from the public would like to comment on the amendment. Anyone virtually? Or? Okay, thank you. So now we're ready for council members to make a final comment if we have one on the amendment. Seeing none, will the clerk or Chief Deputy Clerk, please call the roll on the amendment.
Councilmember Piedmont Smith?
Yes.
Strasburg?
Yes.
Asari?
Yes.
Rosenbarger?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes.
Zulik?
Yes.
Rallo?
Yes.
And Ruff.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. That amendment passes. So now we'll have a presentation of Resolution 2024-20 as amended. Mr. Roebling.
Thank you, Ryan Roebling again. In an effort to save all of your time and not repeat myself, I will save the presentation and hopefully just entice you to ask questions if you have any, so that we have staff from engineering and planning and transportation happy to answer it. I'm afraid that my presentation would just be an exact repeat because nothing substantial has changed.
All right, thank you. Yes, we did have a presentation on November 20th, is that right? Yes. All right, so are there questions for Mr. Roebling about the resolution? Councilmember Strasburg.
Thank you. One of the I'm going to get my vocabulary wrong, action items, I think it's an action item, PPG S15, says develop safe routes to school programs for public and private preschools, elementary schools, et cetera. Has there already been any collaboration with MCCSC on this? And what kind of collaboration? If not, what's your plan for collaboration? How are we going to focus on that?
Yeah, so that is something we have already started. We have reached out to MCCSC, had a meeting, and I believe we have a meeting on Friday as well. The long-range planner in the Planning and Transportation Department is spearheading that. So we're working with MCCSC right now to hopefully pick a school to start an action plan for, and then we'll get that process rolling for every school as the eventual plan.
Okay. A follow-up. Just a quick follow-up on that is there are some easements going in some places from neighborhoods to schools, and they are in a variety of shape in terms of how well they've been maintained because there's not consistent maintenance for all of them. Has that been considered in terms of figuring out a plan for consistent maintenance of easements?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So the way there's multiple ways to approach safe routes to school. The way we are planning to do it is individualized per each school so that there's more community engagement. And so that is something that would come up at the safety action plan level for each school. So like Fairview, for example, we would have a meeting there with their PTA and their officials and come up with a plan where we could then discuss how maintenance and things like that and have a formalized plan on how to do that. So yes, it hasn't come up yet, but it will.
Okay, great, thank you.
Councilmember Rallo.
Yeah, I got a couple. Mr. Roebling, so what role would the council play if, a decision is made to, say, place chicane or roundabouts or, what we would call maybe a significant modification to the roadway?
Currently, you're the budgetary fiduciary body, so that would be your primary responsibility there. It would still go through the engineering, specifically the city engineer, and potentially one day the ATC would have a review step to review any modifications to the roadway. But currently, right now, that is how it is.
So it would come to us under a Title 15
chicane
appropriation of some sort with a recommendation, say, go ahead.
Sorry. Well, so no, chicanes and items like that would not currently come under your review for Title 15. Stop signs, items like that, parking, installation, et cetera, that would be involved in Title 15. But if a modification required that, then yes, that would absolutely come back here. But something like a chicane currently would not.
A chicane wouldn't, okay, would not come before us?
Not currently, no.
Okay, so you could incorporate chicanes. And a chicane is essentially, just for clarification for people watching it or something, could you describe it? It's essentially bump outs that prevent you from driving fast. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah. So it's a slight alteration in the curb of the road so that in the idea that it will cause you to slow down in order to weave through the area, for lack of a better term, and be more cautious through a street. So it's a bump out generally mid-block, and they're offset rather than a bump out, which narrows the road in the same way chicane makes more of like an S turn.
Could I just inquire? I've been around forever, I think, not ever, for a long time, it seems. And it used to come before the council, these sorts of decisions. And then it is now more or less within the domain of engineering. When did that occur?
I'm going to have to kick that one to Andrew.
Good evening, Andrew Seabour, City Engineer. There was a time, I can't recall when, but Title 15 listed traffic calming devices. And I think when the updated traffic calming and greenways program was adopted, that changed Title 15. I do know that at the time, having just internal debates on what is traffic calming is a really interesting question too, and state code actually defines what some traffic calming is, and it's surprising. I don't recall off the top of my head what the devices are, but some of them that you would think to be listed are not, and some of them that should be. Anyway, so it's a complicated matter.
But in any case, this doesn't cede any authority, this plan. It essentially, that authority has already been granted.
I think that's fair. One thing I believe the plan speaks to in some detail is a desire for projects, I think all transportation projects, to go to the ATC for a review through that safety lens. And I believe the vision of the ATC, which is a separate thing, is to at least make sure there is a council representative on that committee as well.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Seabour. I have another question, but I can wait if there are others.
Are there other first-round questions? Okay, if not, I have one. The Appendix B talks about public engagement and equitable engagement, and then also reviews the demographics of the people who have been engaged in forming this plan. What is the public engagement plan for future implementation of traffic safety measures?
Yeah, so that is another great question. Currently, it's proposed in the ATC, they're going to keep talking about both things apparently, that public engagement and community-centric design is included, and so there has to be a clear representation that that happened, and the way we're going to do that is through the model created through this program. So we're going to do public outreach in the same manner, ask the same demographic questions to make sure that we're reaching the right the groups, but it is something we absolutely need to continue to expand on and will continue to expand on. That is another item in there, is to call out public engagement as something that we need to do more of and do better.
So public engagement, you're planning to carry that out for specific projects in the same manner that you did for this plan?
Yes, obviously in a smaller version for each project, but yes, absolutely. If you're familiar with the Indiana Street or Indiana Avenue Safety Corridor project that we've started, we adopted an exact model replicating this with public outreach on the corridor and through the internet, asking similar questions with the same web map or a similar web map to gain the same knowledge that we did about the total plan for that individualized plan.
And there was, I'm trying to find it now, I think in the equity piece, Appendix A, there was a graphic about increasing impact on a decision with different levels of engagement with the public: inform, consult, involve, collaborate, empower. Can you put that in context? How does staff plan to use that model as it implements projects? I don't know if that's a question for Mr. Seabour or for yourself.
I maybe didn't understand it exactly. Sorry, would you mind repeating it?
So in the Appendix A about equity, there's, community engagement and approach to community engagement. And there's a graphic here that has different levels of community engagement. Do you want to just inform the public, consult, involve, collaborate, or empower the public? And it doesn't really say, it says, depending on projects, we might use one or the other of these. Can you speak with a little more detail as to how you view public engagement, in which of those categories it might fall?
Oh, sure. Well, public engagement, so part of that is that we'll have to assess that at each stage. In that same document is the equity framework flow chart, and the idea is adopting this, we'll adopt that as well, and we'll utilize that in order to determine where we are in the engagement and how we are being equitable in that engagement and what steps are next moving forward. So it's that hopefully answers the question, but yeah, sorry. I kind of rambled off there. But yes, in that same document is the equity framework flowchart, which should hopefully, I think, answer like the steps that staff will take in the engagement portion of outreach.
Okay, I'm trying to find that chart.
It is, it's at the very end of Appendix A.
Oh, the last page of Appendix A?
Yeah, it's.
Thank you. Oh, yes. This one was hard to read. Engagement method, analysis method. Okay, recommendation. Maybe I could get that in a format that I can read a little.
In the actual plan, it's very large, easy to read.
Okay.
In the packet, it kind of came out small.
Okay. Well, I appreciate these being in here. Obviously, a lot of thought was given, but that's not a question. So, other questions? I guess we can go to second round questions. Councilmember Roller?
Yeah, well, you anticipated my one about the community engagement, but I've got another one about, so I think that the report is great. It's very thorough and, analyzing crash data, mapping out where these things happen and where we need to apply our attention and so forth. But it occurred to me today that crashes happen with not only people in cars and bikes and scooters and wheelchairs and so forth and pedestrians, but also with deer. And so it got me thinking that how would I amend this document? And I was thinking of bringing an amendment, but I thought this is a little bit complicated. But just to demonstrate that this isn't trivial, could you, Ash, could you just put up a map? And this is courtesy of the B Square Bulletin. Dave Askins compiled this some years ago, a few years ago. And that's Monroe County. It's kind of hard to see, but the next one shows Bloomington. And in 13 years, there were 1,467 crashes with cars and deer in Monroe County, about 113 per year, and it corresponds pretty well with the Deer Task Force report where we were counting about 50 per year, or about once per week. And surely some of those, I mean, you know, likely it is that the deer is receiving much more injury than the driver, but there are cases where there are crashes, and there was one in 2022 where there was a fatality. So, you know, I didn't want to offer an amendment here, you know, because I didn't know how to approach this, because it seems like maybe other commissions need to be involved as well, Environmental Commission, so forth, Animal Care and Control, you know, mapping out where the deer cross and so forth. But do you have a comment about that and how we can move forward in incorporating this sort of data with the report in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of things. One, I will point out that this is an amendment to the comprehensive plan, so this body has the ability to amend it in the future, and we expect to report annually, so that'll give everybody an opportunity. So if we feel something is needed, we can absolutely do that. I will also point out that the focus of the Safe Streets and Roads for All Safety Action Plan is to focus on fatal and serious injury crashes rather than all crashes. That becomes its own thing. And then all of that to say that in the update, you'll see, or in Amendment 2, we addressed the link issue. There's a link to nothing, and now we have a link to where the future crash dashboard will live, which will show deer crashes as its own individual heat indicator. So we'll be able to keep better track of that. But yeah, it is something we absolutely should consider. It, as you spelled out, it is a problem, and it's something we do look at when we are looking at other crashes, but this one is slightly larger than just transportation related, which makes it a little bit tricky to include, I think, in this document, but it is something that potentially should be included later.
Okay, that sounds good. I think I agree with you completely. We can approach it later, but something to keep in mind. Thank you.
Other questions on the resolution? Councilmember Osari.
Just reflecting off of earlier conversation with Councilmember Ruff's motion, if there were no funds associated with Straight Streets for All, or is there any ways that you would change the proposal? And then, you know, this is particularly reflecting also on what Councilmember Zulik had said earlier about, you know, political change in the country. Do you expect there to be any changes, right, to our ability to get these funds? Because a lot of our conversation around the impetus for this has been, you know, I mean, obviously the real reason is wanting to having a Vision Zero and so on and so forth. But would there be any structural changes that you would make if it wasn't for that external impetus of trying to get funds?
Oh, that is an amazing question. I would say that the only thing that we would probably do differently if there wasn't a specific grant source that we were seeking is just do a Vision Zero action plan itself rather than a Safe Streets and Roads for All. They're very similar, almost identical. They both adopt similar strategies. The Vision Zero plan just goes into slightly more detail on transportation adjacent items rather than just focusing mostly on transportation items. So it talks about housing affordability and things like that, which is something we would absolutely love to take on. But we wanted to make sure that we were qualifying for the grant, so we focused on just the grant version of the.
Certainly. But you don't feel like the grant focus is limiting in any way. So it's helping us be a little bit more expensive, perhaps, than we would be as a minimum viable
option?
Yeah, oh, well, I think that we could expand it, but this is suiting the absolute needs that we need for addressing safety, which is what the original resolution calling for Vision Zero was getting at.
Excellent, thank you.
I have another question along those lines. Is there a chance, since we're having a change in presidential administration, is there a chance that federal funding will not be available?
That is maybe a better question for your federal legislators, but I believe that it is fully funded till 2026, so that this may be the last year to apply, but will be eligible for this last year at the very least, regardless of administration change.
That's good to know. Thank you. Any other questions? All right, seeing none, we'll go to the public. Is there any member of the public who would like to comment on Resolution 2024-20, adopting the Safe Streets for All action plan as amended? Okay, I don't see anybody in council chambers. Is there anybody via Zoom who is raising a hand?
No immediate hands raised.
Okay. We'll give it another moment. All right, well, then we can come back to council members for final comments prior to our vote. Are there any comments from council members? Councilmember Ruff.
The discussion earlier reminded me, going back 25 years ago or whatever, I remember one of the very first, if not maybe the first, actions I voted on or items I voted on as a council member were the speed humps or speed tables or speed, whatever we want to call them, on Covenanter between High Street and College Mall Road. It came to council. I think the new ATC commission's review of projects will be broader in scope and consideration than the process we have currently for some of the types of projects that I'm concerned about. I think it will be an improvement. I think they will have a broader, come into it with a broader community perspective and more considerations. But I still have concerns about unforeseen consequences of the plan being adopted into our current transportation plan. Given that I know it's been out there a while, but we've seen new versions coming. We knew new versions were coming, which was reduce the incentive to spend a lot of time on something when you knew there may be a different draft. I've not had the time that I want to be really comfortable with this. Given that the council is approving it here and now, but many of the changes to our community streets can occur as a result with no say by the council. And I know that happens now. That's part of the process as it is. But I'd like to see that change. And I'm planning on bringing some legislation forward or adding an amendment to the ATC legislation for next week that will propose some changes to what comes to council regarding some of the street changes. So my hesitation is in part based on my old yes vote on the transportation plan as part of what is often used to justify the projects. It's really difficult for me to go to public meetings where there's a lot of concern about a proposal for city street, and I all share the same concerns, and then all of a sudden, it's stated by staff that, well, council approved this. This is approved by the city council. It's part of the transportation plan appropriate to city council, and everybody's glaring at me, and as they should be. You know, there's things that I couldn't have foreseen then, and I haven't had the time to make sure or to do my best to see that there aren't unforeseen implications of this that would make me comfortable with it. And maybe January 22nd would have given me that time, maybe not. And I understand the procedural difficulties with proposing that at this point. But right now I'm leaning towards, because of the concerns I just expressed, I'm leaning towards voting no, because I'm not quite ready yet, and I don't think the public, at least we've heard from some members of the public that they're not quite ready yet either. And given that theoretically there would be time to take a little more time that we're not going to be able to take, or we're going to choose not to take because it would be procedurally complicated, and some small risk of a snafu somewhere along the line with the plan commission process or whatever. I'm leaning towards voting no on this right now. Thank you.
Additional council member comment? Councilmember Stossberg.
Thank you. I think I mostly want to respond to Councilmember Ruff's comment that he just made. I don't share similar concerns about it. I do feel as though I've been able to review it enough, and I have confidence at this point in the public processes of these projects in general. But I'm sympathetic to this philosophy of wanting certain types of changes to come back to council. And I just think that the appropriate way to do that, the best way to do that, is to put amendments into code that require certain changes to come back to council. And I don't think that the right path is to hold up this plan, which is basically saying, hey, we want our streets to be safer for all users. And so I will be supporting this tonight. I think that it's important to be able to get started on some of these grant applications and some of this information, that it has to go back to Plan Commission and keep on going in this process, because ultimately I think the goal is that we want our streets to be safer. And going to the deer comment that Councilmember Rallo mentioned, that I've actually had that discussion in my household as well, because it is there's a surprising number of crashes that involve deer, and it's sort of interesting. But if traffic is slowed down, generally speaking, then crashes with deer would also be lessened, because if you're going slower, then your reaction time, you have more time to react, to slam on your brakes to prevent hitting an animal that might cross your path, in the same way that you have more time to react to a vehicle not yielding, or a child stepping into the street, or any other issues. So I'm happy to support this. I would urge my council members to support this, and that if you want to change something else about the process of what comes to council, or how that comes to council, that can be worked on. And I mean, this is going to go onto the transportation plan, but it's not as though tomorrow things are going to start being built. And so I think that there's plenty of time if members want to amend our processes with regard to approvals. Thank you.
Other council member comments? Councilmember Rallo.
Well, just to echo what my colleague said, I would have felt more comfortable if the implementations of changes in roadways was brought to council to weigh in and for our final say as the elected body. I find, a lot here, of course, to be very important, very logical. Changes, directives to intersections and so forth that we need improvements on and so forth. So I'm in a difficult position too. I think I will likely support this plan and then work to change code to bring these changes, these major changes in roadways to the council for a final say. And because I think a lot of those initiatives could probably occur internally with the planning, transportation, engineering. I think that we need to address it elsewhere. So, thank you.
All right, any other council members want to comment? Well, I will make some comments then. So overall, I think this is a good plan. I think it's clear from the outset that we need to do something different because there have been way too many serious accidents with serious injuries and fatalities on our streets. And so I welcome this plan and the Vision Zero. Let's try to get there by, 2035, to have zero fatalities and zero serious injuries. As our outspoken constituent, Greg Alexander, always reminds us, we need to engineer roads to be safer. The accidents don't happen by accident. They are accidents, but they can be mitigated by the way we design our streets and our pedestrian ways, and we need to do more of that. I especially like in addition to the plan itself, the appendices are very enlightening. The equity piece gives a great history of inequities in our built environment, including in our roads and the division that was caused by the interstate highway system and other systems in this country, and the redlining and other ways that our community in Bloomington has been segregated, and the necessity of especially engaging residents of underserved communities. The public engagement overview and some of the principles of public engagement are excellent here and can be used for other things other than transportation improvements as well. So I appreciate that. And the Appendix C, proven safety countermeasures, this is like a great tool for elected officials. I mean, when people are like, why are you doing these bump outs? Well, here's a 2-page PDF for you explaining why we do bump outs, because it does improve safety. So this is a great tool for the ATC and for the public and for anybody who is curious of how we can improve things and why we do some of the things we do in the city. So all that said, I also feel like this was kind of rushed in that we were correcting typos up till yesterday. And that's problematic. And that's, and not just typos, but some actual internal references, and some things were not clear. I had a good conversation with Mr. Roebling yesterday that led to some of the things in the amendment. So I also kind of wish that we had more time, but that concern was outweighed by us missing any grant deadlines, which, the deadline has been announced, but it's still not quite certain. So I definitely don't want us to miss out on any funding opportunities. But I do encourage staff and indirectly the consultants to do a better job when such plans come forward. This is certainly, I've been on the council for a long time. This is certainly not the first plan where there were a lot of typos. Again, that's nitpicky. But also, there were things that were unclear, and that after they had been through many commissions, many eyes had seen them, and I'm reading this, and I've been here 12 years, and I don't understand something, that's not clear. And we need to be clear for our residents. So I do encourage planning and transportation staff and anybody who's using consultants, please make sure that what you're bringing forward is clear for a layperson to understand. So with that, I am going to support this tonight. And I'll have one more call out if there's anybody who hasn't made a comment who cares to do so among the council. I don't see any. So I think we can go ahead and vote on this item.
Councilmember Azari?
Yes.
Rosenbarger?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes.
Zulik?
Yes.
Rollo?
Yes.
Ruff?
Yes.
Piedmont Smith?
Yes.
And Stossberg?
Yes.
Thank you.
So the Safe Streets for All Action Plan is adopted by a vote of 8-0, and it will go back to the Plan Commission since there were some amendments. Now let me find my agenda again. We now go to our second period of public comment on items that are not on tonight's agenda. If there's anybody in the public who would like to make a comment who has not commented already during the open comment period, please approach the podium and sign in, state your name, and you'll have up to 3 minutes. If you are still with us on Zoom, you can use the raise hand function, which is located under the reactions button at the bottom of your screen. So we'll start here. Please go ahead.
Good evening, Madam President. Again, this is Christopher M.G. from the Greater Bloomington Chamber of Commerce. I want to address the theme that I've sort of talked about, that it's been brought up quite a few times in council in recent weeks, which is financial priorities, public safety infrastructure challenges. You know, managing public funds is very challenging. It's a complex process, and recent discussions about, say, the $295 million public safety bond demonstrate that. Our funding remains static on these projects, but they continually escalate in cost. The demands are difficult. The strategic decisions then call for us to make tough decisions on it. Things change. So we saw that bond and a bunch of projects, and we didn't have the money for them. Ultimately, something needs to get cut. So we saw the recently approved Fire Department Logistics and Training Center was initially estimated at that initial point of $2.5 million, but now is going to cost $6.5, and this is only after significant cutbacks. So we take the Showers West renovations project. Attempting to convert a 100-year-old factory into a modern police station was fundamentally unsound to begin with, and I sort of brought that up continually in the last 18 months. With the original intent might be well-meaning, but the reality of this 100-year-old furniture factory into a modern public safety facility was never fiscally responsible. The cost of renovating the West Showers building was grossly underestimated. The reasonable choice by the administration was not to throw good money at bad. The bond would only pay for a certain amount of projects. The core message I'm trying to say is we have opportunity costs. Every municipal dollar spent, we need to look at what are the trade-offs in that. We must evaluate the project not just their immediate benefits, but what the alternative investments we are foregoing in that. Enhanced transportation safety measures sound positive, but at a broader community expense. The 7-line enhancements improve safety. I think that has been proven. But that's no way to judge or fund something, and it's a singular entity. The Chamber supports safety and infrastructure improvements for sure. However, comprehensive trade-offs analysis, we risk neglecting critical community needs. Our resources are finite, our needs are not. I urge the Council to approach each project holistically, carefully weighing the direct benefits, long-term community impacts. By doing so, we can allocate resources more effectively, serving Bloomington now and generations to come. In the same sense, when I hope the new commission that has up for next session or next regular session, that commission does sort of not just look at projects singularly, but has the plan or the engineering look at 2 different projects or 3 projects and going, where do we want to put this money toward? Where are we going to get most for it? So I appreciate your time tonight, I really do. Thank you, happy holidays.
Do we have anybody on Zoom?
No hands raised, no.
Thank you. Next person here in council chambers.
Good evening. My name is Joe Davis, and I'd like to speak to you about a recent experience I had following the November 5th election that took place on November 6th. Well, let me back up. I was a candidate for Monroe County Council at Large, and as such, I placed yard signs at various locations at voting precincts on the 5th of December, or the 5th of November. On the 6th of November, that morning, I left to go collect my yard signs, and I noticed the commercial landlord that owns the property to the left of me, Renata Raper. She also owns dozens and dozens and dozens of properties, units around me, where I reside at 530 South Washington Street. And when I returned, she saw me, and when I returned, there were abandoned vehicle notices on my 2 licensed and registered vehicles parked in front of my house. I went immediately to, I went to parking enforcement to let them know that my vehicles were not abandoned. I was told by Ms. Walls, the Director of Parking Enforcement, that it didn't matter what I had to say, they were going to move forward to tow my vehicles. Now, I don't understand why the owner of a vehicle will not be listened to when they say that their vehicles are not abandoned. It turns out that my neighbor, though it's hard to prove because she does it anonymously, she calls up the U-Report system and maintains that my vehicles, which she knows are licensed and registered, are abandoned just to harass me. And when I request public records request for the identity, the city is unable to tell me who made that because it was done anonymously. When I know that the system is being abused, I filed a petition to appeal and was told by Nicole Bolden that there is no mechanism for appeal of an abandoned vehicle notice.
That's the end of your time.
How is this? Thank you.
That's the end of your time. Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we will move on to the council schedule. In the meeting packet, there was a proposal for a council schedule, annual legislative schedule for 2025. This was drafted by myself after our discussion on November 13th. In broad strokes, it has regular sessions on the first and third Wednesdays of the month, and on the second Wednesdays, it reserves time for committee meetings or deliberation sessions. And I wanted to present this and see what questions or comments there might be, and I guess I will also entertain a motion if anybody would like to approve it this evening. Questions or comments about the draft schedule? Councilmember Strasburg?
Did you look at whether the total number of meetings for the year was the same? I'm kind of specifically looking at December, where there are 3 meetings listed, and our code says that we need to go into recess after the second regularly scheduled meeting, which is technically true because we have the 1 committee meeting in there, but are there usually just 2 meetings in December?
Just based on my memory, I think we usually have, in the past, have had 3, but I don't have that, data in front of me. I don't know if others can speak to that. And I did not count the number of meetings and compare the number of meetings to this year, no.
I was just curious.
Councilmember Rosenbarger?
Hi, about the budget hearing. So what were you kind of planning there? Because they're not every day, right? 8/18, 8/20. So it's 4 days over 2 weeks, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, and then, that sounds fun. And then, the adoption meeting for the budget is 10/8 when the budget is due, then the first, is it like sometime the beginning of November?
November 1st is when it's due to the state.
Okay. Okay, that sounds good too. I mean, just after this year, I would not be up for pushing that back at all with the administration. So I guess just as long as they understand that it has to be ready on that date for us.
Yes, and I did send this to Deputy Mayor Gretchen Knoll and to City Controller Jessica McClellan, and they did not raise any concerns with it. I also wanted to note that there are 2 typos in the footnotes that were in the document that was in the packet. So footnote number 7 on the meeting on September 30th should be footnote number 6. And then in the actual list of notes, footnote number 5 should say C note number 4, not C note number 5, because that's the note you're in. So just little technical typo corrections. Any other comments or feedback? Councilmember Rallo.
I'll make a motion to adopt the draft schedule.
Second.
As corrected.
Okay.
Well,
There's a motion and a second. There can be still questions after the motion.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Asari, did you have comments?
My only thought, other than, it's too many meetings, but is the budget, again, overlaps. I think it's nicer to spread out over 2 weeks, but it does overlap with the beginning of the school semester.
Yes.
So, I mean, if there was an ability to start it a little bit earlier, that would be ideal, but yeah, that's my only thought on that.
I think since the tax revenue estimates from the state do not come until early August, I think it would be very difficult for the administration to present us with a budget any earlier than mid-August.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if anybody would like to make an amendment or postpone until, well, we have a motion on the table, so.
You don't want to make it later. So.
Councilmember Strasburg?
I just have kind of so these committee/deliberation meetings, could those turn into, say, special sessions or regular sessions, if any kind of bit of, I guess, special sessions, if something came up that needed more than just a discussion? Because for committee or deliberation meetings, those would, I think by definition, not have any votes of any kind at them. And sometimes there are time-sensitive things. So does the schedule kind of allow for that sort of shifting the way that it is right now?
I believe it would. Council Attorney Lehner or Deputy Attorney Kulak, as long as there would be sufficient notice of changing a committee or deliberation session into a special session, would that be feasible?
Yes, I think the key is the notice.
Okay. And I guess the other thing, once Councilmember Asari took notice of August, we only have one regular session scheduled in August right now. I'm not sure if I view that as a problem or not. I guess I'm just curious as to what others think about that.
The reason for that is that the office of the city clerk did not have anybody available for the third Wednesday in August. So
What
I
about
just
this-
made the call and said, we have
Right.
plenty of budget hearings, so we can just not have that one.
What about the second Wednesday in August? Like, I'm just curious, like,
I'm sorry, let me check here.
maybe you meant the
Oh,
second Wednesday.
I meant the second. I meant the second
Oh,
Wednesday,
okay.
yeah, because the third Wednesday, we will have a budget hearing. So it, according to the pattern, it would have been a deliberation/committee meeting. Any other comments or questions on the motion? Councilmember Rosenbarger?
I would just, as we probably approach September of next year, I think it would be good to consider if we need 5 meetings that month. I know it's because we have the special session and then it says, sorry, wait, what footnote is that then on?
So the October 1st meeting has been proposed to be moved to September 30th because of Yom Kippur. So yes, that's why we have the extra meeting in
Oh, it's 6. Okay,
September.
okay.
I should also highlight, and I'm sure you've noticed this, but the summer recess is proposed to be earlier than in the past years. It would start after our June 4th meeting, and it would end with our July 16th meeting. And the reasoning there was to have more time to weigh in on the budget when we're not in recess. Councilmember Stossberg?
I just want to say I love moving summer recess a little bit earlier because it coincides better with my own personal family vacationing schedule, which usually happens much earlier in June, which means last year we didn't really go anywhere. So thanks. I think that that's great.
Any other comments or questions before we vote?
I'm sorry, I do have one more. Is that okay?
Yes.
Just with the, okay, because October 1st we can't, I was just thinking of even pushing that special session for adoption of the budget up, but maybe that doesn't make sense. It would, I guess, be, it wouldn't have to be on a Wednesday, right, because it's a special session. I just want to make sure council has plenty of time to send a budget back, because that's been the problem for all 5 years of my time on council.
What do you mean send the budget back?
The administration to make changes. Like, you know, every year it kind of becomes this nuclear option of like either you vote yes on this budget or we have to continue on with last year's numbers. And I just like do not want to do that again. You know what I mean?
Yes. It seems like that may be better avoided by putting the special session for introduction of the budget a little bit later, because usually it's between the budget hearings and the actual introduction of legislation that changes might be made. But obviously, we have before us what we have before us, and a motion is on the table. So if, you know, if people want to vote no, then we can propose something different next week. Also, this is not going to be chiseled into stone. I think that we
Yeah.
can make adjustments later as long as we have sufficient public notice.
Yeah, okay.
Councilmember Strasburg?
I just need a second before we vote because our code says that we have to meet in regular session on first and third Wednesdays with some exceptions. So I'm looking at October and I'm recognizing that the 1st of October is moved because of a holiday, which is allowed for. But the third Wednesday then in October is a committee deliberation meeting. So I think that via our code, that meeting on 10/15 would need to be a regular session, not a committee deliberation session.
Ah. Thank you for catching that.
I did a parliamentarian job.
Very good. So shall we just switch the type of meeting between October 15th and October 22nd? So we have a regular session on the 15th and a committee/deliberation session on the 22nd?
That would be my proposal. So I guess I'm moving to a.
We-
Madam President?
What do we do?
Yes.
Sorry, can I speak to?
Yes, Councilmember Flaherty?
Just noting that that section of code goes on to say the council may agree by majority vote to dispense with any regular session or to change the day and hour of any meeting, but the council shall meet at least once a month. And I just wanted to note for reference that as a historical practice, we've treated the adoption of an annual budget, which is kind of done for convenience and to notice it all at once, as such a vote. So a majority approving an annual budget that would dispense of the default requirement of a first and third Wednesday meeting at 6:30. I believe the guidance in the past has been that that's aligned with code and the anticipation that we can in fact change that by a majority vote. So, you know, if we want to ask our council attorney if she shares that opinion or interpretation, maybe worthwhile, but I do want to note that historical practice. Also, just a last comment there, I think Title II is very overly prescriptive on this type of thing. And we should probably strike a lot of that type of language from Title II because it gets us kind of bound up in knots like this unnecessarily by codifying things that don't need to be codified.
Council Attorney Lehner, do you read it the same way that by majority vote to change the first and third Wednesday, majority vote could be the approval of the schedule tonight?
I'm looking it up right now.
I think he's right. I was looking at the exceptions more than I was looking at that next sentence, so.
Councilmember Flaherty, what's the code section?
2.04.050A.
And you're proposing that the majority vote in adopting this council schedule tonight then would satisfy the requirement of subsection A to dispense?
Yeah, I'm sharing my recollection is that has been past practice. I can't swear to it 100%, but I don't know if anybody else who was around previously can back me up on that.
No, I think that makes sense to me. I would agree with that.
Okay, thank you both for that input. So I think we can leave the October schedule as presented. Any final comments? If not, Clerk McDowell, can you please call the roll on the motion to approve the annual council schedule?
Yes. Councilmember Rosenbarger.
Yes.
Flaherty.
Yes.
Zulik.
Yes.
Rallo.
Yes.
Piedmont Smith.
Yes.
Strasburg.
Yes.
And Asari.
Yes.
Thank you. And that concludes our business. I just will remind you all that we do have a special session next Tuesday evening at 7:30 in council chambers. And then we will have our last regular session of the calendar year next Wednesday, December 11th at 6:30 in council chambers. Thank you. We are adjourned.